Hey guys and gals, what is going on? Joining us here, and along with my awesome fellow hard rock cousin Travito Ward, and welcome to
Alternative Week
2014. Yes, and this has been coming for quite a while, which I've mentioned before, and it's great to have a co-pilot by the side of me. So, what are your thoughts on this awesome week ahead, my friend?
Well, alternative rock is my favourite genre of music and will always be my favourite genre of music, with such a plethora of bands.
Amen to that, my friend. Amen to that. It's also one of my most favourite genres that I've loved at for quite a long time, and he was telling me here that this genre got him into the music that he loves today. And
music just inspires me the most.
That is true, because he plays in a band called That Perception, who follow a similar genre. So we're gonna link them in the description of this video to remember to like them on Facebook. And yeah, so Travito, what got you into alternative music to begin with?
Well, numerous amounts of things that got me into this genre. You, for instance, introduced me to bands such as Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, back when I was about 11 years old.
And would you say that was a good thing?
That was a great thing, and I got myself into Nirvana when I was younger. My dad owned this album, and I just picked it up. I was like, I've heard a lot about this band. I'm going to listen to this album. I'm going to go upstairs, listen to this album, and it was just an amazing album to just sit and listen to.
Amen to that, mon frere. And the same with me. Like, you know, I heard the song Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden on Kerrang TV back when, and I purchased Super Unknown, and yeah, and obviously, like I said, like in numerous videos, like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was a big player in that too. And yeah, it's a great pleasure to finally welcome us all to this awesome week ahead.
One more thing to add is, I said that you introduced me to these bands, but I had heard these unknowingly beforehand on Grand Theft Auto in Radio X. Bands such as Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, L7,
Jane's Addiction, Helmet.
Just all these amazing bands which were featured on one of the radio stations, which you can just accidentally stumble upon.
Indeed, and you know, that game has really shaped our musical tastes. And yeah, the first band that we're covering this awesome week, guys and girls, is the mighty Soundgarden. These were actually the first band that the label Sub Pop Records signed back in, was it 1984?
They started in 1984.
Started in 1984.
I think they were signed a couple of years later when the first album came out.
That's true, because I think like their 1987 EP Screaming Life is like the first thing like Sub Pop Records actually like put out on their label. And yeah, well today like we'll be discussing like, you know, the band's evolution, so like where their sound like came from, and also like what it like came to be, because
also what its influence today.
That's true, my brother, all the way. And yeah, like the years we're looking at, guys, the years 1987 to 1995, which means like not all of like the band's like last album and their first incarnation won't be featured on this review, but you know, we get like, you know, like their albums from that period, including this. And yeah,
we thought this was a very important period to look at. When we were looking at the bands to do, we thought we'd give ourselves 10 bands, and then we thought which 10 bands would be most important, because you said from 1987 I think, and then to 1995, and so I was thinking what bands were most important in this era. I mean, there are some bands during the end of this time who stood out further, but more specifically in this time period we picked bands which had dynamic records even though they carried on afterwards, such as Soundgarden, for example.
That's true, and most of the bands we'll be covering in this week, guys, you know, are like, you know, the big players, most influential artists of that generation. And yeah, as aforementioned, we started off with Screaming Life EP, which was released in 1987, and this EP is actually reissued alongside the Almighty Fop in 1990. Did like sort of like a dual like thing, like released them together. Obviously, first as individual. And
yeah.
What would you say about the Screaming Life EP, my friend?
I've never listened to it. Sadly,
I listened to it vaguely, and what I gathered was basically like it's just like a band like trying to find like their overall sound. Like, you know, it's really raw. You know, like the guitar tone from is it Kim? You can pronounce this better.
Kim Thayil.
Kim Thayil, for instance. That starts with tile. Yeah, Kim Thayil, like, you know, his guitar tone is like really raw, and like Chris Cornell's vocals, you know, like aren't the final product. You know, there's stuff like a lot of like echo effects going on, and you know, it's just basically like as you were saying earlier, like a band like getting started in many ways.
Especially Soundgarden, even in their early days, were more diverse, especially tuning wise, which we'll probably mention later, or definitely be mentioned later on when we get to Super Unknown. But
that's true.
Kim Thayil started even in their previous band projects with a drop D tuning, which not many bands in those days were using. It's more especially inspired from Black Sabbath, which is seen in the early days of.
Especially that song, like Into the Void from Master of Reality. That's like, it's not in drop D, but it's like, you know, it first showcase like the alternate tunings, and
there was a more versatile range of tunings coming from Black Sabbath.
Absolutely, and I was watching like the Guitar Center thing with Soundgarden on Facebook.
Oh, I watched that as well.
And look, it's a great minds.
Yeah, they were
great
discussing the ability of tunes.
Yeah, like Kim Kyle said, like first introduced like drop D to band in the mid-80s, and they used to do that, like sort of encompass their early material.
Because he was saying when he showed it to him, like, oh, see if you can do that with all these different tunings.
Yeah,
because
it's a bit I saw too.
The world was his oyster, or his guitar was his oyster.
But then you realise you only got like 20 frets, so you think,
20?
Well, depends on the guitar then.
Well, he uses SPs, doesn't he?
He does.
But not Gibson. I'm not sure of the brand.
Yeah, and the thing with Soundgarden guys is they do use like a lot of alternate tunings, and this Travito Ward here, like we'll be mentioning those later on in this video. And after the Screaming Live EP, like I said, it's just like a base like starting point for the band.
Well, like many bands do use EPs as a good starting point, I guess.
They do. Yeah. But it's a bit like, you know, it's like a good way of like, you know, not like you know, giving your audience like too much material at once, so like you're just like easing you into like the works of the band, I suppose.
It's good for the band as well. It gives them a good starting point. I mean, some of those tracks may be featured later on. So
yeah.
For example, not to go too much into another band.
Yes, that'll be coming later. Don't worry.
Just an example.
Yes, and yeah, like the Fop EP, which came in 1988, like a year later, like Screaming Live is more like a full-on EP containing like 6 tracks, I think, whereas like Fop only contained like 4. You can sort of like see why they put them together, didn't you? In many ways.
Yeah, now there's about 11 tracks.
Yeah, but like
because I think there is the 10, but I'm sure I saw more tracks on it, like some remixes or some edits.
Yeah, there's a song on Fop because it's called like a Fop, like fucked up heavy dub mixes.
Yeah. That's what I saw.
And yeah, like this is like in the other days, like Soundgarden, like, you know, as you were saying, like really diverse, but you know, their materials, like it wasn't like as long, and it wasn't like, you know, like what would turn out to be.
Yeah.
Like
they were just very unique at such an early stage in the 80s, which was dominated by an ending era of punk rock, I guess, and a dominance of dance music appearing from the likes of Depeche Mode and Human League.
That's true, and in the 80s, as well as like punk rock, there's also like hardcore punk too, bands like Black Flag and Fugazi, so like telling like the early Soundgarden, like, you know, that sounds like really prevalent. Obviously Soundgarden were obviously turning into a different beast.
Yeah.
Back then. And yeah, like this, like on the EPs, like on this EP especially, like Fop, you know, it's like the song Fop is very like dance-oriented song, like obviously referring to like the dance music mentioned from that era, dude. And yeah, some like wasn't really explored as much on the later material, but it's like exclusive to like you know, the band at that time. You know, like it really, you know, showcases like, you know, we're just like developing the sound, and you know, like
they're heavily known for being experimental and
influencing
themselves and others.
Amen. And yeah, what came to be would be very different indeed. And yeah, like after recording 2 EPs, and I just had like an awesome moment then when we saw that thing scrolling down. Their debut studio album, which came after these 2 EPs, and yeah, this is sort of like where like the sound from those EPs like put into like a full length. You know, you got like as I was saying, like there wasn't like the sound was fully developed, but like lots more elements of diversity in their earlier material. You know, I got like a bluesy, you know, Status Quo vibe from like, I think it's like the second track called All Your Lies.
It's more rock.
Yeah.
More of a smooth rock, more raw, experimental, I keep saying.
That's true. I think it's the best word to use, dude, to be honest. So.
Especially when it comes to Soundgarden.
Yeah, Soundgarden are the epitome of experimental, folks. But yeah, there's also like little interlude tracks like 665 and 667, which are the third.
665 is a great song. I
mean,
it's Ultra Mega, I must say personally, it's not my favourite.
Nice.
Soundgarden, probably more to the end, seeing as it was their early days and they just produced so much more.
That's true.
665 is a great track.
It was also like coincidentally produced by their bass player at this time called Hiro Yamatoma, who later on to leave the band. I guess it's sort of like summed up just like, you know, Soundgarden like wanted to be different by like you know, because he obviously wouldn't like make as much like an impact to like Ben Shepherd.
He didn't think he was contributing nothing. Ben Shepherd made a great impact.
It did, like their interlude bassist, they call it Jason Everman or something. Like he filled in for, you know, just after Loud and Love, and then got Ben Shepherd.
He was there for the tour mainly.
Yeah,
and then he was kicked out straight away because Kim Thayil said he didn't fit.
Yeah, and as we get later on, you'll be able to see why, you know, we think this is the opinion. So, but
Well,
yeah.
Yamamoto did write a few tracks though. Whether he didn't think he was contributing enough, you look at the, you know, you go on Wikipedia, for example, bad website to use, but
Very useful though.
if it's correct, mind you, seeing as it's a public.
That's
page,
very debatable.
Very debatable. See, two opinions here. Normally, when it comes to songwriters, they are correct. They don't always give you the songwriter, but I mean, it'll say in the album probably if it's got a booklet. But it does say Yamamoto did write a few tracks on Ultra Mega OK and Louder.
The Love, yeah, the album after this, and yeah, like after Ultra Mega OK, which was their debut studio album released in 1988, the same year as the FOP EP. You know, like it's in the 80s. You know, like Soundgarden, you know, were more like, you know, like still finding their sound. Like, you know, still continuing albums of diversity, you know, in their early material, like, came, like, again, like, the production, like, wasn't the same as it was in the 90s, was it, really?
Although, then again, that's what I love about grunge, is that even in the 90s, nothing's highly overproduced. It's
That's true.
Still more raw, but when you look at Super Unknown and compare it to the early stuff...
Yeah, I'd say, like, you know, as
that's
like...
the beauty of producers.
It is, because, yeah, because on their EPs and their albums in the 80s, guys, like, Soundgarden, like, a different producer. It's like, say what they did for, like, their, like, albums in the 90s. And, you know, I really feel that sort of, like, you know, made a change to the band, as well as, obviously, like, the lineup change with the bass player leaving. And so, yeah, when Ultra Mega OK, like, was, like, a combination of, like, EPs, but it's, like, one album, like, Louder Than Love was, like, the album which came after in 1989, was, like, the first album where, like, you know, like, the trademark Soundgarden sound, like, more refined, would, like, really start to, you know, rear its head.
Flower.
Yeah, as well as Gun and Hands All Over, for instance. And this is actually produced by Terry Date, who produced the band's album after his Bad Motorfinger, which is where, like, the band, like, really, you know, like, showcased, like, what their, like, traditional sound was.
Yeah, it's just giving you an idea now what is to come with Soundgarden. This heavy crunching guitar and this vocal range of Chris Cornell's, which on Louder Than Love is just all over the place.
It is, like, you know, throughout the whole, like, discography, there'll be, like, instances like Chris Cornell's, like, traditional vocal style. But on Louder Than Love, like, get a mixture, like, you know, the material they would become and, like, the material that they were exploring at that time, so, like, not to alienate fans in a way.
Yeah, I agree.
I suppose. And, yeah, obviously, like, when they recruited Ben Shepherd, you know, for the 1991 album, Bad Motorfinger, you know,
this brought a new life.
It did. It really, really reinvigorated the band, you know. Like, you hear Rusty Cage, the first song, and you immediately notice a difference.
Oh, it's just a good track to start off with. Rusty Cage, a renowned song, showing now more experimental guitaring with the E string tuned down to a B.
Indeed, and this is where the alternate tune. It was just like the alternate tunes came like more prevalently from this release onwards.
Definitely, especially on Super Unknown, as Chris Cornell said at the iTunes Festival, that they have to constantly change guitars now.
Yeah,
this isn't just as a band, because it was each of them just creating different tunings, like Matt Cameron and Ben Shepherd as well, creating different tunings.
Absolutely, and yeah, you can just tell like the classic nature of Rusty Cage straight away. And you know, then there's this like songs such like Outshine, like you know, which is like one of our most favourite songs.
Especially with the music video.
It is. Oh yeah, it's
very raunchy and grungy.
Yeah, you said it was sort of like a preface, like Black Hole Sun.
I feel like with the effects and the sort of visual of the video, it's got that same eerie edge that Black Hole Sun has.
It is. I think like a part of the video is like emulated like the single cover to this song too. Yeah, like you know, Outshine was like, you know, it continues like the classic nature of the previous song Rusty Cage. You know, this album, like the thing is like with Soundgarden's like 90s material, like it was more refined. Like, you know, but I wouldn't say like the diversity was like as prevalently as much, but you know, the sound was like more, you know, beefed up.
It was more about the sound and the feedback.
That's true.
More about just this grunge sound appearing.
Yeah,
dirty, sludgy.
Yeah, it wasn't like as fuzzy as like say their 80s work, and you know, like the band like really settled on a sound, like really honed their craft in that department. Definitely. I mean, like the songs like Slayers and Bulldozers, the third song, which is again just like one of our most favourite songs from this album.
Sweet heavy track.
And
from all the grunge bands, Soundgarden fall into more of a metal oriented area, like Alice in Chains, who are I guess a lot more of a heavier metal.
Yeah, those two are very like alike.
Same with
stylistically.
Faith No More grunge, I wouldn't say they're more alternative rock, but they do have that metal element. See, and then you compare them to Nirvana and stuff. Soundgarden have more influences like the Black Sabbath, the Led Zeppelin, the Joy Division, a lot darker metal.
They do.
Inspiration.
They do, man, and that's the great thing. Like why we love alternative music so much. Is like, it's so diverse. Like, it could be like categorized as just like about like anything at all.
You get like a spider chart with all these different
You do.
areas coming into it.
You know, like some of the bands we'll be exploring this week for y'all will be, you know, sort of like a contrast. You know, like there's obviously covering Soundgarden today, but you know, some of the other bands like are completely different.
Yeah,
you know,
throwing in a few sneak peeks. I
yes,
guess.
yeah.
My apologies.
Nah, it's fine. It's
some
like
subliminal messaging, I guess.
you know, like alternative is so diverse. You know, like I mean, anything could be classed as anything. Essentially,
That's like what makes alternate.
It is. It's alternative. You know, it could be whatever you want it to be, and we only know our own perceptions.
Wow, I see what you did there.
All without perceptions. But yeah, like then we get songs like Jesus Christ Pose, which you know carries on from the vibe like the first three songs.
Very controversial.
Yes,
but it's got a good. See, this whole album is a good smooth flow.
It is.
You got to really concentrate. I think you have to concentrate on the album just to get the smoothness of it. I mean, you could just do it. It's good to listen to just.
Yeah, because like we were actually listening to this album like before I started this review, it just flew by. Like we were just talking about it, and like we realised the album was done. It's like
I say it's smooth, but still a diversity of sounds.
There is.
Not as much as Super Unknown.
Yeah, it just obviously like it shows like a band's like more refined. So I mean like. You got like the short songs here as well, just like the fifth track, Face Pollution, for instance. You know, as well as like Drawing Flies, track 10. But you know, overall, this one like Soundgarden like really hung their like you know darker and more like extensive material. You know, what I mean, like songs like Room 1,000 Years Wide or Search with My Good Eye Closed, which do you say they really stand out from the album, dude?
I do think so because they'll think of this album, they'll think of Rusty Cage.
They will.
I think this album was their palette of creativity. Yeah. It was the beginning, especially when people thought that this band was going like south. Especially being aligned with bands such as Helmet, a very notable band from the grunge era.
That's true, and you know they're certainly like another band that have like a lot of underrated albums. But I think it's a Soundgarden like. You know, people probably thought like Louder Than Love at the time was their peak, but then came along with this, and you know.
Then again, Louder Than Love had Big Dumb Sex. I mean, that's a great track.
It did. Big Dumb Sex, guys. What can you say?
Another controversial track from Soundgarden, but it's the late 80s, I guess.
Yeah, like so, you know,
different.
Yeah, you know, like censorship was like really rife at this time,
especially with Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Wow, what did they do?
With that, what's the song called? Relax. Because apparently it was about something that people were a bit edgy on in those days. Yeah.
Wow.
Do some research,
about
people.
That.
Oh, you know. Just do some research. People might know.
Yeah. I think like you know because they're like little like parental advisory stickers, and we were talking about
back in the day. We were talking about how back in the day that was the worst thing you could probably find on CD was parental advisory, but now they've pretty much disappeared, I guess. Maybe they're on some rap albums.
Yeah,
not stereotype, but it's just
50 Cent.
With what children are being shown today, we feel that it's much worse than some swears on an album.
Yeah, I mean, there's monsters like Bieber and Gaga. What more could you want?
This whole sex sells, I guess, and the use of Miley Cyrus.
Ugh. But yeah, like in back in the day, like it was the most badass thing you could do. Like you know, I've got a CD as a parental advisory stick. I'm going to go to the couch. I'm going to buy it.
It's like that Eminem Without Me video. You know, he's dressed as Rob and he's climbing the building. He sees that kid with the parental advisory CD. He's like, oh, no.
I think Rage Against the Machine did like a censorship thing once, like a show. I think it's like Lollapalooza.
Well, what about their first album? They would
I've talked about this. We've talked about this.
Album is directly no censorship with that man.
Yeah, like and with this album, guys, you know, like the really visuals, like of the band too. I mean, like you got, you know, like the weird distorted click on the back, like you know, the weird artwork on the front, and you know, like it really reflected, you know, like the more darker, more refined style of music, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And
it didn't stop getting dark. No, it did not stop getting dark.
And yeah, when people caught like bad mood things like you know Soundgarden, like you said, like they thought like heading you know off the trail.
Yeah. Oh, they reinforced that.
Yeah, then they came along with the Beast in '94. Super Unknown.
The almighty epitome of Soundgarden's career.
Yeah, but I think it's really appropriate. Like this is like the last album like covering this time period because you know, this is like Soundgarden at their peak. You know,
20 million records so far, I think.
That is impressive.
5 times platinum.
I think so. Yeah, it's really you know deserved though.
Not many bands get that. They were just happy to get one album like that. You know, some bands never get that in their whole career.
Yeah, I mean, there's like so many classic songs on this, but as you were saying earlier, dude, like you know, the thing with Bad Motor thing was like you know you can listen to it like you know so quickly, but with Super Unknown like
you get to about half an hour in and you're still on the first couple of tracks. It's like when you get to the length of a punk rock album, you're only at the beginning of Super Unknown.
Yeah, you just realise
you're lost in the Super Unknown.
Yeah, or you're alive in the Super Unknown.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
track 5's written in yellow for some reason. But yeah, it really shows like how Soundgarden like grown this like just like little punk rock band, so this like progressive, really heavy alternative entity, I suppose. Like that's the thing. Like the thing is like the album doesn't flow as well as Bad Murphy in my opinion, but there's so many more like classic songs on this album. Like music wise, I mean. You just start with "Let Me Drown" track 1, and already you can tell like it's actually better than like most of on Bad Motor Finger anyway. So
yeah, just like you get all their old material and throw it away.
You do, and
it's bad. It's just
yeah. But then "My Way" of the second song, it's a bit more light-hearted,
Oh, it's good. It's good use of Chris Cornell's vocals, I feel, especially when he's saying the title track.
Yeah, "My Wave," and it's just carries on like "Fell on Black Days" and "Mailman," which is like not a single, but has like a really really rocking opening riff from Kim Powell.
Fell on Black Days is a lot more smoother and darker.
It is.
It's more of a melody with the riffs because it's just constant. Because you feel like something's going to build up, but you have to wait quite a while.
You do.
For Chris vocals to be like, I wanna know.
Yeah,
I'll try not to do any Chris.
But this could be my fate.
He's got such a vocal range like Freddie Mercury's.
He has, yeah. There's no point in us even attempting to emulate Chris Cornell. Yeah, it just has like the diversity of the album in ways on Black Days, and like obviously there's so much more to the album than just Black Hole Sun and Spoonman. It's a bit like with Rustication, Bad Murphy. Like it's like an incentive, like to go out and buy the album and listen to the rest of the songs, definitely. And there's like some songs off the album, like it's so like musically different. Like I actually like couldn't remember some of the stuff. I had to go back and like listen to it.
Yeah.
Like my favorite song on the album, like track 15, like Suicide. It's probably like the longest song. It shows like all the elements like of Soundgarden. Like really shows that their careers like come to the fore in many ways. And there's those songs like just like they really stand out.
What stands out even more is the writing progress on this album, which was a lot different to before. It's where the band went off into their different worlds, all picked up a guitar, all 4 of them picked up a guitar. Because I can't remember.
Such musically diverse characters.
I think it was Ben Shepherd or Matt Cameron. It was like when they talk about wanting a guitar, like the dad
chord book.
Yeah, told them to learn all the chords.
Just plunked it down,
no strings or anything on a fretboard of a guitar.
I don't know about you, but I'm pretty screwed if that happens.
Well, just get his hands working.
Yeah, I mean, like as playing guitars all that finger work and stuff. So yeah, it really came to fruition because this album is like the complete Soundgarden package to us. We both absolutely love this album, and
so do many.
You can see
it's
why.
the commercial success of Soundgarden.
It is. I mean, I'm not, as I said, I'm not a fan of like most mainstream things, but mainstream in the '90s, it was alternative rock, and it was good mainstream. Like arguably, like Soundgarden's best 2 albums were like their most commercial.
Yeah, especially in America in the early '90s. I mean, later '90s it changed over here to the British rock outburst.
It did.
Oasis and stuff.
Yeah, you Britpop.
You Britpop.
I mean, that's the thing about music. Like it goes through like trends. And obviously alternatively it's our favourite trend. That's why we decided to dedicate a week to it.
At the moment, we're in a real downward spiral in the trends, I guess.
9 Inch Nails.
Oh well, it's a good phrase, I guess. when we talk about these trends.
We're all friends.
These
me and you, all of us.
The popular trends like musical wise and just the internet.
Yeah, it's like the mainstream is like plastic, like people listen to one thing and then move on to like something else, and
that's what's just so good about grunge, just the rawness.
Yeah, it has the longevity too. I mean, this music will be around forever. Like there'll be, some people like that'll just like continuously listen to music like forever and a day.
Well, I think it was Kim Sayles said to the BBC. He said what was beautiful about this is just how it erupted. But like today, you just get so much hype from social media. People be trying to download it, file sharing it already. But people went out to buy this album because that's where you can hear the like Spoon Man and Black Hole Sun on MTV. But you can. But
MTV was good back in the day.
Oh, MTV just like it had 120 minutes of just rock music.
Headbangers Ball. If you guys from the 90s, you'll have heard of these awesome programs.
It's still going today, but MTV Unplugged with these bands that we're going to be talking about throughout this week.
Yeah, a lot of them play that show.
I'll just try and think off the top of my head about...
I don't think Soundgarden did though.
No, but I'm not going to try and name any bands. I'm thinking of, I can go like 1, 2, 3 straight away from what we're mentioning. 3 American bands.
Seems to be an American thing, didn't it? Although like, you know, this genre of alternative rock, like Soundgarden Rolling, was primarily around in America, you know.
Yeah, Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle, Washington was like the
debatable,
hotbed.
debatable about Nirvana.
Yes, but that's for another episode. So.
Indeed.
So yeah, I think like Soundgarden overall were like, you know, really influential, you know, in terms of like the alternative scene. You know, they were like the first band as far as like Sub Pop Records form, and like their sound really evolved from like their like, you know, more punk roots in the 80s to like their more, you know, really heavy alternative, you know, like, grungy sound in the 90s. You know, I think this, you know, people be listening to Soundgarden's music for like years to come. You know, I wouldn't say it was like influenced like, you know, say like the Beatles or something, but you know, a lot of people will.
I feel like because there's some Middle Eastern stuff on that. There's also some inspiration from the 60s. That's a bit
there's everything on Super.
There's everything on Super. But it's just like the Beatles were inspired in the 60s by Middle Eastern stuff. You listen to tracks like Norwegian Wood with George Harrison playing a sitar.
That's like...
sorry, carry
on.
I was just going on about influences today, like Soundgarden. I feel that Soundgarden's... You can see elements of that in Mastodon's more melodic stuff, those types of riffs, and Queens of the Stone Age stuff.
Absolutely, like that. It's just like stone rock in there too.
Yeah, then again, I'm saying that Queens of the Stone Age were from that era, but from Caius with Josh Homme.
Yeah, Josh Homme's band before Queens of the Stone Age was Caius.
In the late 80s, early 90s.
It can still like make parallels between Soundgarden and that band too.
It's amazing to see how long these people have actually been in the game.
I know, it's like, you know, they're really home their craft, you know. I don't think there are many characters like, you know, Cornell or Homme, you know, like, around today.
Well, Corn. Did you say Corn?
Cornell, sorry.
Cornell, sorry.
Cornell and Homme.
I was going to say, well, Corn didn't just come from Corn. They were in a band beforehand.
Jonathan Davis, lead singer.
Yeah, Fieldy and Head and Monkey had a band beforehand, I think.
Yeah, I think Corn like more like, you know, Public Enemy. That
was a Public Enemy. Yeah. It was those three, and then they found David, and then they went to a gig and found Jonathan.
They did. So it was coincident that the same front name as me. So, but yeah, guys, Soundgarden, you know, a really influential alternative band. You know, it was more appropriate for us to start with these things. Like we're doing this like in order of like when they came around. And
yeah. We thought we picked the earliest one to
approximately, anyway.
It's amazing how long Soundgarden, 30 years. I mean, there's a break.
30 years?
Yeah, well, I think 1984 to 2014, that's 30 years.
My word.
It's just that there's a break between 1997 to 2010, so...
Yeah, the song like went to separate, but that's like...
13 years, that anticipation. See, and then afterwards they released 2 albums, you know.
They did.
More poppy and nothing in comparison.
No, but it's
I enjoy King Animal, it's more rock heavy.
Yeah, I think Cornell's vocals have gone a bit there because of his age.
Well, he strained after the tour of Super No, he strained.
I'm not surprised. Have you heard some of the high notes on these songs?
Well, with the success, they were just constantly touring. I don't think they were used to it. I mean, like, Bad Motor thinking they were touring with Guns N' Roses, who covered Big Dumb Sex from Loud and Love.
I think, like, you know, like, because obviously grunge had, like, blown up at this point, like, you know, Soundgarden were expecting big sales with this album.
It was on its way out, though, after Kurt's death, I feel.
His part did play a bit in it, but obviously the sound came out after it passed away, but it might have been
there were some bands which didn't stop. Stone Temple Pilots and Pearl Jam, you know, they carried on.
They're going on. And those bands...
And now these Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, revitalised.
Yeah, it's like, grunge alternative rock's coming back, baby.
Well,
we're ready for another revival.
I'm ready for it, but
I am too.
It's just that it's the Soundgarden's new music and Alice in Chains' new music is different, but I enjoy it. I mean, people will be bashing William Duval and Lane Staley against each other. But I think their music, it's a lot darker, it's a lot more meaningful.
It retains like what grunge's like all about, you know, from the beginning, like, you know, being dark, like Generation X, you know.
I do think though that Chris has revitalised some of his vocals because it was a lot different in Audio Slave. See, after this, Chris Cornell went to Audio Slave, Matt Cameron joined Pearl Jam, which this year he's not touring with Soundgarden, they've got somebody called Matt Chamberlain touring with them.
For some reason his name reminds me of somebody from the Smashing Pumpkins. Was that Jimmy Chamberlain?
Jimmy Chamberlain, yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, like, obviously with, like, Audio Slave, like, Rage Against the Machine, like, basically, like, you know, got rid of Zach De La Roche and Brian Chris Cornell said, here, Chris, you take the lead.
Sound.
Yeah, that's true, and, yeah, I do hear some remnants of Soundgarden in Audio Slave, in a way, especially on the first album.
Especially with the guitars, I feel, especially because... I'm not sure how many tunings Tom Morello used to use in Rage Against the Machine, because I know he used like standard half.
Yeah, drop D.
But like you've got the sort of B tune down to the couple of the tracks on Coach, not Coach, on the self-titled, but not Coaches, that's standard.
That's a good song, though.
But I'm just trying to, like, oh dear. I'm trying to remember what Gasoline, I think that's got the E to a B on it.
That's like a song like Rustication.
I'm trusting tab websites here, so...
Yeah, tab websites, songs to guitar, ultimate guitar, you know.
Yeah.
I say make your own mind about tabs, guys. So yeah, this has been our...
do it by ear.
I need to learn how to do things by ear. But yeah, like Soundgarden, you know, they paved the way for like many grunge bands to follow. Like they preceded Nirvana, and they, you know, really elevated this, like, you know, really like started to open people's eyes about this genre. You know, and they're like, you know, let's sort of sound like, you know, they're still around today, make music, you know, their longevity can be unquestioned, and
20 years down the line, it's getting reissued this year, and it's still as mighty now as it was back in 1994.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Super Unknown will stand the test of time.
See, I wasn't even alive.
No, you weren't. You came a year after me,
Yeah,
didn't
I wasn't even alive for this album.
I was born in the year Kurt died and Bieber was born.
Yeah.
Feel for me! But yeah, I think, like, but I just feel Bad Motorfinger's like underrated. Like, you know, a lot of people should like this album. It's good. It just like because this thing like blew up. Like, you got that first, like,
just because of Super Unknown, don't discredit Bad Motorfinger.
Nah, it's a great release.
Just don't even bother to make comparisons between them. Just listen to them separately, and then
yes, they're both brilliant and unique in their own ways.
If you've never even listened to Soundgarden or have only listened to Black Hole Sun.
You're missing out on so much.
Didn't even mention Black Hole Sun as much as I thought we would.
No, Neil Spoon, man. No.
Yeah, I think you should listen to Bad Motorfinger first and see how they evolved into Super Unknown.
Yeah, like, you know, those albums both start with a bang and end with a bang. You know, they really are two very vital albums.
Blowing up outside the world.
Yeah, that's in the album after Super Unknown. Like a reference.
Very strange single artwork. It's like an apple with a worm coming out of it. So grunge. So grunge. You can see that grunge is going there.
Yeah, like grunge's all about, like, you know, weird imagery and
death, drugs, dark stuff, rawness.
But it's good music. At the end of the day, it's good music. But yeah, guys, hope you've all enjoyed this first review of Alternative Week 2014. Yes, Soundgarden, you know, they're a band we'll probably be listening to forever. And yeah, there's certainly plenty more to come up in this following week. So yeah, guys, I have been Jonny Middleton.
And I have been Travis Ward.
Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next video where we get to find out what we've been talking about. Till then, stay safe, stay strong. I shall see y'all in the future. Well, actually, stay safe, stay strong, and we'll see y'all in the future forever. Amen. And he's going to play a riff that's going to sum alternative for y'all. The band I'm talking about today, Let It Fly.